Good morning. Welcome. 6 after 8 o'clock. Our first guest is you, Guy Martin. You are the editor of Defense Web. Thank you very much for your time. Welcome to the show. Let me start off by sharing this report, or rather a couple of sentences from a report that's been filed by Helmut Heitman. I'm sure you are very aware of who he is. He is a defense consultant and an analyst, and he says he still does not believe that weapons were loaded onto a Russia cargo vessel, which of course is Lady R. And that these weapons were then shipped to Russia. Your thoughts on the matter, because this story doesn't seem to die. It's not dying a slow. It's not dying the death we hope it would. And of course, we also know that the ambassador to South Africa, the American ambassador to South Africa, seems to think that is, of course, Ruben Brigetti. He has accused South African government of supplying weapons to Russia for its war on the Ukraine. Do you think, number one, you're going to respond to obviously Helmut Heitman's claim or beliefs around that, and also that the issue around there not being there's no smoke without fire regarding Ruben Brigetti. So, your thoughts on this matter?
Good morning, and thanks for having me. Um, yes, I do know Helmut very well, and I have to agree with his conclusions. There does not seem to be any evidence that South African weapons or ammunition was loaded onto the vessel. There's very little that the Russians either want or can use from us. They're at the moment even talking to, I believe, Iran and North Korea to supply them with Russian caliber ammunition. For South Africa, we use NATO caliber, so there's very little compatibility. And anyway, the National Conventional Arms Control Committee wouldn't allow us to export currently to Russia in any case. And from all the evidence that we have, there doesn't seem to be any that indicates anything was actually loaded. We don't have any export approvals. None of the companies that I've spoken to are aware of anything being sold. So there doesn't seem to be a shred of evidence. I mean, obviously, one can't completely rule out that there wasn't weaponry loaded on, but there doesn't seem to be any evidence that there was. So I don't think that as far as I know, only ammunition was offloaded for the South African Special Forces, which makes sense because our Special Forces, they operate a lot of foreign or weaponry, which includes Russian caliber equipment, and this is part of their operations in foreign countries where they might need to blend in. So they will use weaponry that the South African National Defence Force doesn't normally use. So, for what we understand, the Russian ship offloaded a large quantity of ammunition, several million rounds of ammunition, and that went for the special forces, and nothing was put back on. Now, it's hard to fathom what evidence the American ambassador has that led to him saying he would stake his life on the fact that we put weapons on board that vessel. He has not, since the report has come out, said anything about the matter, and the U.S. Embassy has just said, well, South Africa must draw conclusions from its own report, which is a pretty non-response. Now he might have had some shred of evidence. As you say, there's often not smoke without fire. So what could have happened is that this Russian vessel was delivering weaponry to other countries. I believe that it made several stops across Africa. So perhaps he was misinformed, got his information confused, and he thought that maybe um, we were putting our weapons on board the ship. there's a tiny chance that maybe our weaponry was loaded up for some other country in Africa. I don't think that is the case, but again, one can't rule it out. And the other option is that when they were unloading our ammunition, they were moving containers around. Maybe they had to take some containers off, get to the containers underneath them, then they put containers back, and maybe that's why he thought that we were sending weaponry to Russia. But all the evidence doesn't seem to support the fact that South Africa would supply weaponry to Russia. So,
Guy, do we have the sophistication to be manufacturing? And I know earlier on you indicated something about NATO aligned type of weaponry, but do we here in South Africa have the sophistication of manufacturing the type of weaponry required, not only in Russia, but to other parts of the world? And I am also aware of the fact that there are foreign companies based in South Africa that manufacture armaments and different types of weaponry for sale elsewhere in the world. Um, could that have been the possibility that perhaps one of those foreign connected companies, like I understand the Germans have a plant here where they are manufacturing weaponry? Is that perhaps a possibility that they might have sent off a shipment, not necessarily to Russia because they are part of NATO, so that just is not a possibility, but like you've indicated, to other parts of perhaps Africa, or consignments may be needed in the Middle East or one of the other customers elsewhere in the world?
again, it's highly unlikely. So Rheinmetall Denel Munition, they're a massive manufacturer of ammunition. They've got facilities across South Africa, but they manufacture NATO caliber ammunition. So, for instance, that'll be 155 millimeter artillery shells and so forth. And they've done a lot of business since the Ukraine conflict has started, because a lot of the European countries, Germany, Poland, Latvia, and so on, they've been increasing their military spending because they're quite alarmed by what's happening in Ukraine. But the ammunition that Rheinmetall Denel Munition, for example, manufactures, it's not compatible with most Russian guns. So the Russians, even if they got hold of it, it wouldn't be of much use to them. So that doesn't make sense. And all the orders that are public knowledge and that I know about have not gone anywhere. Well, not all that close to Russia. I believe they have supplied to some of the countries bordering Russia, because obviously they're quite worried about their own security. So it's highly unlikely that South African industry would supply anything for Russia, because Russia, I mean, their defense industry is absolutely vast. I mean, they've got plenty of armored vehicle manufacturers, small arms manufacturers. They are running out of artillery ammunition, and this is why they're speaking to North Korea and Iran. And Iran in particular has also supplied them with drones, quite a significant number of drones. So Russia, they're turning to other suppliers, and South Africa just doesn't make sense that they would either need what we have or be able to acquire, say, drones from us in the numbers they're looking at. For instance, in Iran, they're buying thousands of drones from the Iranians. South African industry, I mean, we might be able to make dozens. There's no way we will be able to supply Russia with thousands. The Russians are a bit behind, or they're struggling a little bit with advanced electronic components, electronic warfare systems. South Africa is very good when it comes to electronic warfare and guided weapons and so forth. But again, it's not really something that the Russians would desperately need from us. So it just does not, again, just doesn't make sense that they would either need or want, or that South Africa would be able to supply the Russians, even if the Russians did have big orders.
Okay, let's go for an ad break. Please do stay with us. We'll be back with you in a minute or two.
New era. Salam Media. Humanitarian journalism.
Spread warmth this winter with Africa Muslims Agency's Winter Warmth campaign. Sayyidina Umar al-Khattab radiallahu anhu would advise his companions, winter, which is an enemy, has come, so prepare for it with wool, leather socks and socks. Let us help the thousands of South Africans without adequate clothing or shelter to prepare for the harsh winter months by providing them with blankets for 150 Rand and winter warmth packs for 300 Rand. Spread warmth with Africa Muslims Agency. Call AMA on 011-834-8685 or donate online at africamuslimsagency.co.za. Africa Muslims Agency. Empowering, educating, inspiring.
Shimmer, sparkle, captivate. Nothing less than a masterpiece. Droplets of gold inspires precious design. Platinum bursts with intricate freshness, and every pure diamond becomes more than just a girl's best friend. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, where timeless dreams become a reality. Come to us. We tailor-make designer gold, platinum, and diamond jewelry. Trade in or remodel your old gold. Clad yourself with classy name-branded watches. We offer insurance valuation and free zakat calculation. Visit us at 534 Ridge Road, Overport, or call 031 208 9142. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, manufacturers of fine gold and diamond jewelry.
As the chilly winds sweep across our beautiful land, let us remember those in need. In South Africa, recent weather conditions have left many vulnerable individuals and families struggling to stay warm and nourished. With Ashraful Aid, you can donate a loaf of bread for 10 Rand, a blanket for 150 Rand, or soup for 100 people for just 230 Rand. Donate today at www.ashrafulaid.org. Winter warmth, it starts with you.
Discover the Africa of your dreams and surround yourself with her spectacular beauty. Relax beneath her serene sunsets and explore wildlife at its natural best. It's where the pride of Africa comes together. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve. Get to know the Big Five or cruise on an elephant safari game drive. Interact with lion and tiger cubs and enjoy world-class halal cuisine while we pamper you during your 5-star stay. Indulge in the true African experience. For reservations, call now on 042-203-1400 or visit kwantu.co.za. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve, the place of gathering.
The Turkey-Syria earthquake is among the deadliest earthquakes of the last century. Thousands have lost their lives, and large areas and cities and towns in southern Turkey and northern Syria have turned to rubble, leaving huge numbers of residents with very little or nothing at all. Al Imdad Foundation's emergency relief team is on the ground providing life-saving aid. The people of Turkey and Syria desperately need your support. Donate online at alimdad.com or call 0861 786 243 for more information.
It's a new beginning. It's a new era. Salam Media. Humanitarian journalism.
Welcome back. It is exactly 8:29. News and Views on Salam Media. We're talking with Guy Martin. He is the editor of Defence Web, and we're talking about the Lady R report. Back to you then, Martin. And I'm kind of wondering, is this not a red herring situation? You know, the stuff that spy novels are made of. Maybe it was just to take the focus off what was happening here in South Africa, or maybe they're trying to divert attention from something else that was happening elsewhere, perhaps, on international waters or neighboring countries, etc. And this is why, the Americans have gone that route. Number one. Number two, I'm also wondering if this is not about settling scores with us in South Africa diplomatically, because the Americans were not exactly happy when the Russians invaded the Ukraine, and South Africans' stance on the support for Russia. I mean, not necessarily outright support, but they took a very, very neutral stance on this situation. So perhaps they're settling scores. How do you read it?
Well, I think a red herring is an unlikely. I don't think a red herring was involved. But I think what you say about settling scores, I think there's definitely a lot of merit in that, because the United States has been very upset with South Africa's very soft stance I would actually say, pro-Russia stance since the invasion of Ukraine. And the Lady R saga, I think, is just one of many issues that upset the Americans. And I think it might have been the straw that broke the camel's back. If you remember, in February, the South African Navy hosted Exercise Mosi 2 with the Chinese and the Russian navies. Yes. And this was held on the anniversary of the invasion of Ukraine. And the timing was very insensitive, and that caused a lot of backlash locally and internationally. Because, yes, this exercise, it was not an unusual thing. We've hosted it before, but to allow the Russians in on the Ukrainian invasion anniversary, it was insensitive and tone deaf. And I think we've seen a lot of sort of tone deafness with the Lady R case as well. I mean, the fact that instead of just publishing the cargo manifest immediately and clearing South Africa's name and showing that, okay, there were not weapons loaded onto the vessel, but instead a whole panel was set up, and it took months and months for this whole process to unfold. And we still don't actually have even the summary. It hasn't been published yet. So the way it's been handled has been quite poor. But I think one of the reasons why this panel was established is that our government has realized that relationships are being damaged, and the country is suffering from that as a result. One of the reasons why the Rand has been performing so poorly is because of South Africa's choices in essentially choosing Russia over Ukraine and our Western allies. So although our foreign policy is neutral and we ostensibly support a peaceful resolution to the conflict in Ukraine, South Africa has clearly sided more with the Russians, and our government has sort of walked that back a little bit because it's seen how damaging this position has been. So what's also interesting about the whole Lady R saga was the timing around the AGOA agreement negotiations in the United States. Now, that could have been the Lady R saga, and those allegations by Brigitte could have been leverage to try and get South Africa to play ball and for the United States to get better terms. So the timing around the Lady R and the AGOA negotiations, it seems rather coincidental. So yeah, so as I say, I don't think there was a red herring to distract people, but the timing does seem a little bit strange.
I guess that's the reason why then Brigitte hasn't been recalled. That in itself would create a whole diplomatic furore regarding these allegations is made against South Africa. And as you rightly say, the Rand has taken a pounding post his remarks. And the fact that he's not being recalled back to the States says a lot, does it not?
It definitely does. What I find quite strange about this whole business is that the United States, they claimed, well, Brigitte in particular, he claimed that he had evidence that South African weapons were loaded onto that vessel. And he said he would stake his life on it. And since then, he has not shared any proof. And he has not released any statement since the report was announced on Sunday night. And we haven't heard much of a response from the United States. It's a rather strange situation. So either he was misinformed, or he was just playing politics and using this as leverage for diplomatic gains. But I think he should be held accountable, because remarks like that are reckless. And if he was misinformed, then he should just admit it and say so. But like I say, his remarks have been reckless and extremely damaging. If we just look at the performance of the rand, our international reputation, it's not good fallout from the Lady R saga. But having said that, the way the South African side handled it has also not been very commendable. I mean, the secrecy and lack of transparency, the extremely long time to respond to and look into the matter, it's quite mind-boggling that it's taken basically 9 months to investigate the matter and still not release the full story to the public. So if you don't have anything to hide, then there shouldn't be an issue in being transparent. But by hiding, taking so long to come out with this report, it does make South Africa look guilty. So the way that our government has handled it, I think it was flawed, and we could definitely do a lot better in future.
Let's look at the issue around Brigitte himself. Should he have handled the situation differently? Should he have gone directly to our Minister of Foreign Affairs, for example, or asked for an audience with Cyril Ramaphosa to, put his findings on the table and then see how South Africa and the States go forward with the matter? But him having, it seems, very recklessly made those comments very publicly has hurt the South African rand and has hurt us very, very badly, has it not?
Definitely. Yeah, the way he went about it, it's rather strange. I mean, the Americans, they sort of hinted that they did share some information, but again, they haven't been very clear and forthcoming with that. So if they wanted to handle the situation in a better manner, the logical thing would be to share that alleged intelligence with counterparts in South Africa. And if nothing came of that, then last resort, you would make that information public, or make those allegations public. But by essentially going public from the beginning, it was an unusual and quite reckless way to go about things. And it still doesn't quite make sense why essentially the first option was to create a public outcry. And we're still reeling from the after.
Perhaps it was deliberate. It might have been absolutely deliberate on the part of the Americans. They wanted to probably show us to South Africa, wagging the big finger at us. If you don't play ball with us, these are the type of repercussions you will see playing out. This is how we will retaliate. And I'm just thinking maybe that's their way of punishing us for the stance we've taken regarding the Russian-Ukraine war.
Yes, I do think that is the case. I mean, we've been extremely passive on the whole Ukraine situation, although President Cyril Ramaphosa, he did lead that peace mission to Ukraine, but very little came of that, and his stance was very, very soft on Russia, and he's refused to condemn Russia. And the puzzling thing about all this is that we are picking a side that doesn't give us much of an advantage. I mean, we've got minimal trade with Russia. There's not much that Russia can offer us at the moment. We get much better return on investment by being friends with our biggest trading partners, which are the United States and Europe. So to be picking the Russian side, like, yes, there is this historical tie back to the liberation movement days, but that's 30 plus years ago. Benefits are absolutely minimal. So I think the Americans, they've been very frustrated, not just with Lady R, but our foreign policy as a whole. And the exercise with the Russian Navy in February, that also upset them. The fact that Lady R was sanctioned by the Americans and was allowed into South Africa. The fact that it sailed into Simonstown after switching off its transponder. I'm sure they were very upset about that, and they probably just had enough and decided that, well, if they can't get the right response through diplomatic channels, maybe let's get this out in the public domain.
My final question then to you, Guy Martin, is this now the closing chapter of this whole saga, or do you think there's going to be some sort of ongoing investigations or another report from the Americans and from South Africa just to finally kill the Lady R saga?
I don't think there's going to be much more information to come out. If the Americans had any evidence, they probably would have by now shared something. The fact that it's been 9 months and no one has been able to leak anything conclusive, I think it just shows that there was nothing loaded onto that vessel of interest from our side. So I don't think there's going to be much of a follow-up. I could be wrong because you never have the full picture, but I don't think there's going to be much more that will come out of the saga, except headlines, of course.
Okay, that's where we leave it, Guy Martin, unless, of course, the powers that be had very serious, in-depth talks behind closed doors, and that, the results of those talks will never be made public. So they've probably come up with some sort of agreement and hoping that this will just die natural death as far as the public is concerned. But thank you indeed for your insights on this matter. Guy Martin, editor of Defence Web. Love talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure being here.
It is exactly 8:34 News and Views on Salam Media. Standing by to talk with us is Charlotte Cates. We're going to be looking at the issue around hundreds of Palestinian prisoners who intend going on a hunger strike in protest of the tighter Israeli restrictions with visitor rights, prisoner visitor rights, obviously. Let's go for an ad break, and when we come back, we will be talking with Charlotte Cates.